Okay, all. Good morning, and today we are going to discuss about um, time series analysis and how to implement some of the time series models using R. And in the next class, maybe next week, we can discuss the time series analysis using Python. So let me share my desktop. Okay, so I think the environment. So time series analysis always, typically when we do time series analysis, it's basically timestamp data. So we'll start with some of the timestamp data that we, these are very popular. We'll start with the more popular time series data from the textbook. And then what we will do, we will go to more uh, complicated and more recent time series, a more longer chain and all those things. Okay, so let me. So we are going to use this time library to library T series and TTR, and there is a very popular data set that we are going to uh, call. Let me just give you this data set in the chat box so that you guys can also call in your R. Okay. So this is called King's dataset in Rob Hindman website. Rob Hindman was one of the key developer of the time series package in R. Very, one of the most used, most popular, most respected time series package in R was developed by Rob Hindman. So, and in his website, Rob has given uh, some very basic, some popular time series data which we can use. So here in this particular data set, there are 42 successive kings of England, uh, and at the time of death, what was their age that was given. So, so this is the data. So from this is a like in sorted order. There are the successive uh, kings and their at the time of death, what was their age. So the first thing we can do is we can just write this as a time series object or TS. Okay. Now, if I just do that, and TS is a time series object, it's basically write the it's a function, built-in function from the stats package. Uh, so time series object is you need to give a basically indexing time index, a starting index and an end index, and how frequently it's coming, what is the frequency, and all those things you need to give. And so here, so I think what we can do, there are 42 successive kings, so there must be 42 values are there probably. So if I just see length of kings, then we will see that there are 42 values are there. So we can just simply keep it little simple. Then say we'll start one and add 42, frequency 1. Okay, so if I do it in this way, then you will see it's a time series object now. Start at 1, end at 42, frequency 1. Okay, and then if I just plot this, just take this plot king.ts. So it is, that's how it looks. So over the period of time, the 42 kings at the time of they were dead, what was their age? So there are some kings who died at below 22 kings effectively, who died at the age below 20, and most likely most of them died at a decent age of maybe 40 or greater than 40. There were 3 who died below 40, but above most of them above 50 or 60. So what do you think about this data? Any thought? Just staring at this data?
It's difficult to comment on its stationarity. I mean, it looks stationary, but it might not be. I mean,
Okay, so it looks like stationary time series, means it might have a constant mean or constant variance. And so we can check it out, right? So one way to quickly check things out is we have 42 values. Let's split them into 2. Okay, so we can just take these basic ones, take one each to say 21 and take the mean. The first 21 kings average life was 47 years, and from 22 to 42, 22 to 42, it's 63. So maybe these two guys pulling down the average, but apparently it looks like this guys are sitting here, whereas these guys are sitting here. So it is for these recent kings have average age expectancy near 60, whereas the older kings have an average expectancy, life expectancy of average 40. So which makes sense, right? I mean, these 42 kings means about 500-600 years of span, right? This is not 40 years. These are like for 500-600 years of span, and most likely these are like medieval ages king, 1400, 1500. So naturally life expectancy in those days were very low, not more than 40, and that is what we are seeing as well. So 47, I mean, these were like royals, so maybe they were have a little extra life, but that was if the average expectancy, life expectancy was 40, 41, the king may have another 5 years. So 5 plus 41, 47 is okay. I mean, that makes sense perhaps. Whereas the recent kings, by the time we are coming here, the naturally life expectancy, which is like 1800, 1900, 1700, the life expectancy has gone up. England is doing well since for last 400 years. So naturally their life expectancy has gone up, overall population. So king is also the part of the population that has gone up as well. So we can expect some kind of, on an average, it has gone up. So we cannot expect it to mean stationary. It is somewhat near stationary, but not exactly stationary. I mean, just looking at this two facts. So we can check the standard deviation also. So that actually will give us much more better feeling. So 47 years with the 15 years of standard deviation. And 14 years of standard deviation. So variability has not reduced. We can say variability is not being reduced much. It is almost same, but average life expectancy has gone up, looks like. Okay, so this is one kind of data set to begin with. Not, we can't say much. The only thing we can, yeah.
Sir, I have a question, like while loading the data set using this TS or converting it in time series object, like if it is an hourly data, then what can we do? In case of frequency, what do we need to write?
I'll come all those things. I'll come to this. It will be easier to handle simple time series like daily data kind of thing with TS. And there, if you have a hourly data, there is a new object, not so new. I mean, at least 4 or 5 years is there in the in use. There is something called XTS. So XTS object has the feature of the data frame where you can, it will be much easier to handle the hourly data. Okay. So, and you can handle lot of not only single time series, you can handle multiple time series in the XTS, and it has more like a data frame structure. And we'll see soon when we do some of the financial time series data we'll handle. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. So next, I think we can handle is this data set, well, birth data set, birth in New York City from January 46 to December 59. Let me just send you that. Let me just. Okay, I just shared it in the chat box. You should be able to see it. Now, if you, let me just clear this. So let me just call this data set. There are 168 items are being read, and so these are the numbers that have been read. So what we are saying that, okay, it is, since it's starting from 1946 January, you can do it as a 1946,1. So that will automatically, it will take from 1946 and January, and frequency you give 12. Okay. So if you do this, then you will see that it is being read as Jan, Feb, March, April, May, and then September, and then on the row it has the years are being read 46, 47, 48 up to 59. Okay, so these are the rate of birth. And if you just plot the births, so this is what you will get, the time series. So what can you say from this data set?
There is some trend along with seasonality also in the data.
So there is a trend along with seasonality. Very strong trend with seasonality is there. Very good. Now, whenever there is just staring at data, if you feel like there is a seasonality, the first thing you can check it out, maybe autocorrelation plot, or let me just actually let me just take this to the next level. Just a minute. Yeah, and partial autocorrelation plot. So what it tells you, the autocorrelation plot and partial autocorrelation plot. If you just look at the partial autocorrelation plot or partial autocorrelation function, what you can tell us? Any idea? Just staring at this autocorrelation plot, how can you read this plot? Partial autocorrelation plot. How do you read this plot? Okay, tell me what these each bar tell us.
At different lags, what are the correlation between two points in the
Fine.
random variables?
Fine. Now tell me, so that's perfectly fine. Now tell me what is these two blue line tells us. Anybody have any idea what these two blue lines are? These two blue lines are basically confidence interval. Okay. Like 95% band it's creating. So let's take these particular lag. The correlation for this particular lag. So basically correlation is near point maybe 0.5 or 0.6. And this 0.5 or 0.6 is well within the confidence interval. So we cannot say this particular lag is statistically significant. Now let's look at this particular lag. This lag exactly corresponds to 1 year. And the correlation, lag correlation, 1 year lag correlation is near 0.4. Okay. And so that means clearly 1 year lag correlation is very strong, which is like annual seasonal pattern, which is being picked up. But looking at the basic time series plot, you can say that, okay, what's so great about it? Yes, it's not great about it. It is just reinvented because we knew this from here, right? We knew this, there is a definitely yearly seasonal pattern. Just looking at the time series plot, we immediately knew there is a very strong yearly seasonal pattern. But what we didn't know that if this is 12th month, this is 11th month, this is 10th month. 10th month autocorrelation turns out to be pretty strongly significant. 9 month is also very strongly significant. 9 month and 10 month. Remember that it's a birth related data. So 9 month and 10 month things are very significant, strongly significant. Then 8th and 7th, 8th is not, but 7th also turning out to be significant. And if this is 0, so 1 and 2, first month and second month. So there is a correlation from the first and second month, and then 8th, 9th, 7th, 8th and 9th and 10th, 8th, 9th and 10th. And of course, yearly correlation is also very significant. So these are the kind of discovery we can figure it out. And beyond 1 year, the correlations are not so significant. We can see that at a 13, 15 or something around that, there are some correlations, but definitely most of the things are happening within 1 year, within 1 year window. Wherever you see, you take any 1 year window, lot of things are happening within that 1 year window.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So, is this graph plotted by after removing the seasonality? Because
Yes.
now,
Yes.
okay,
Wait a minute,
because it's not stationary, sir.
Just a minute. Because what is autocorrelation function? Autocorrelation function is basically it just takes the values. Okay, it takes the value and just calculate if today's whatever value 1 month before whatever the value, it takes the correlation. Then it takes the today's value, second day value, third day value, third month value, fourth month value. And that's why we are seeing so much strong correlation up to third year. Because seasonality, trend, nothing is being removed. After removing third month, trend and seasonality, when the data become almost seasonal, stationary. On the stationary, basically it's error data. That time partial autocorrelation functions is showing a strong correlation at the 1 year, second, 9th and 10th. So partial autocorrelation function actually brings us a lot of information for us. So if there is a seasonality if it says that a particular lag is significant in partial autocorrelation function, that means it's a very conservative estimate in that sense, that it's most likely it is there, because trend seasonality already being almost removed. Okay, it's a very good question.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We'll take one more data. It's little bit my favorite data, and then which is airline data. Okay, and then we'll start modeling it, because airline passenger data that is already there, you can see airline passenger data. And if you plot the airline passenger data also, we'll see this kind of behavior. Okay, this strong seasonality. And if you take, say, ACF of directly ACF of the air passenger data, then you will see a very strong correlation. In fact, let us increase the lag up to, say, maybe 60 to 5 years. So you can see that there is a very strong correlation, is kind of up to third, fourth year, it is going on. But if you remove the effect, all the stationary effect, then you can see that almost all things are gone. The 1 year effect is very strong. 1 year negative effect it's creating. And then maybe I think it's 1, this is 11, 10, 9 months effect is turning out to be third quarter effect. It's 9 month, the third quarter effect, we can say. Third quarter effect turning out to be pretty strong. At least significant, we can say. I would not say pretty strong, it's significant, statistically significant, we can say. First month will be most likely, it's tend to be stronger always. There will be 1 month effect will be always very stronger. All right. Now, how do we model this kind of data? Typically, what are the models? When you see this model, okay, I want to predict these curves, these values, how do you think you would like to, what are the models that you would like to predict? You want to use to model and predict these things? Achha. Any idea, any thought?
Sir, first we need to check the stationarity of the data.
Okay.
Then
Data is not stationary. I mean, okay, even if you, I most likely you would like to do what some kind of Portmanteau test or June box test, it will probably reject the stationarity.
okay,
So then
if it is not stationary, then we will differentiate. Like
Okay.
difference, sorry, take the difference.
Okay.
And we will keep taking the difference till the point
Okay.
we are
And
getting.
then
We will try to build ARIMA or ARMA model.
right. Then you will try to build ARIMA or ARMA model. And then basically with ARIMA or ARMA model, you will try to take a forecast, correct?
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So in this graph, what you plotted for air passengers, the seasonality is also it's increasing. So we should take the log first, so that we get a constant seasonality, and then we can take the difference.
Yes. Yeah, agree. Okay. So we want to fit, eventually we want to fit a ARIMA or ARMA model. That is typically in the time series thing. But remember that you need some kind of benchmark model also, against which you want to compare your ARMA or ARIMA model. Okay. So we have to, I would like to build some kind of benchmark model, and before building, and then, so the strategy that I'm going to take is I'll build some kind of basic benchmark model using simple regression model, and then we will build ARMA or ARIMA model, and we will do a forecast from both the benchmark like typical regression model, and ARMA ARIMA model, and then we will compare, so that we will know that by using ARMA ARIMA, because ARMA ARIMA model is pretty complicated model, right? So ARMA ARIMA model, those kind of when it is a complex model, your model complexity goes up, right? If it is model complexity is going up, you know from your machine learning classes that those models tend to suffer from overfitting, problems, and doesn't do generalization very well, and all those issues you do face. So complexity perspective, these are very complex model. So we would like to have some kind of basic straw level, like linear regression kind of model, a reasonable model, and we will compare the performance against those reasonable models. Okay. All right. Before that, I want to consider two more data. One is called Nile data. I think it is there. Yeah. So Nile data is basically average flow. I remember, as far as I remember, it was average flow in the river Nile. Yeah, measurements of annual flow of river Nile at Aswan in between 1871 or 1970, with apparent change point in 1898. So it's a very popular data set. And if we plot this data set, you will see this is the data set that we are seeing. Okay. And if we see ECF here, of course, few years you will see some kind of thing. And if we plot PFCF, which after removing the seasonality or trend, if there is any. So PSEF tells us almost there is, except the first year correlation, lag 1 correlation, there is almost no correlation, any other lag correlation. So we can in fact increase the lag up to say 25. Even with that, we are seeing that there is almost no correlation, lag correlation in these particular data other than the lag 1 correlation. So these kind of data, because this is all, I mean, most likely it is almost near stationary, except that there is a, we can see there is a sort of a, maybe a mean behavior is there, some kind of, but yeah.
Sir?
Yeah.
So why for each data set the correlation between first and second month is high?
First or second is tend to be high because it's a time series data. Immediate neighbor data like YT and YT minus 1. Now, even if you remove the, say, trend seasonality, there will be always some kind of, a neighboring halo effect that will spill over from neighbor to neighbor, like, YT to YT plus 1 or YT minus 1 to YT. That typically get picked up in the error. Even in the, you take the error series, even in the error series also, that error T to error T plus 1 or error T minus 1 to error T, that correlation gets picked up. And that shows that even after removing the trend, seasonality, you still, your errors are not completely independent. So basically it says, if you look into this PSEF, basically it says that your errors, after even removing the trend, seasonality, everything, your ET and ET plus 1, they are still correlated. And the correlation is reasonably high, 0.5, near 0.5. So it shows that you cannot literally say that, okay, these series are independent. So you have to be very, that's why time series data require some kind of special treatment. You cannot just say, okay, now I have an independent, their correlation is beyond very low. I just do a product. I can build my likelihood, I can estimate that. You can do that, but it will induce some kind of bias in your model or in your prediction forecast, everything. Okay?
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But like the autocorrelation or the mean that we find, these are all estimates, right? Because we have only single observation of the entire time series, and we go along the x-axis itself to find the autocorrelation, and we lag it by 1, and we check for like lag equal to 1, we do that. So maybe because while estimating it is that they're not appearing to be independent, but in real nature, when we actually consider many observations, then they could be independent, right?
Um, I'm not saying that, it cannot be independent. If it is independent, then it's basically you cannot, if it, yeah, okay. If it is independent, essentially that means you have a time series which you will not be able to predict, because most of the time series models actually bang on these dependent structure, right? Because if the last time point it was high, I can make an educated guess that, okay, last month or last day it was very bad. So this time also it was very bad. It's like, okay, yesterday it rains heavily. Today also it will rain some, if not heavily, right? So this kind of things. But if the things are all independent, then if yesterday it rains, that information I will not be able to use, because whether today will be sunny or rainy, it will be just half and half. It will be like tossing a coin. Okay, so that's the idea. So it can happen that in reality your time series is completely independent. That's perfectly fine. And in fact, there are a lot of financial models which actually assumes these kind of assumptions, that your current position and the last position's values are independent. They have different kind of financial reason to believe that, but in that means that from the yesterday's information, you cannot predict today's information, or from today's information, you cannot predict or forecast tomorrow's information. Okay, so you have to be in that way, be careful.
And sir, what Rahul asked, that if we are removing seasonality before plotting this PACF or not. So here the data what we fed into PACF, that we don't know if it is stationary or not. Just we are feeding that data. So is it happening inside that model or?
The PACF is, I think what they do, it just take the first difference, and then on the first difference, I have to just check out how this PACF plot actually being plot, the methodology. I remember once, it's a little distant back, I think I read at that time what they did. Basically, it's a partial autocorrelation. So basically, it will just take the consecutive differences and then it will plot. It will do the calculation, the correlation lag correlation calculation. So if you take the consecutive differences, automatically the trend seasonality gets removed. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Any further question? All right, and the last time series that I would like to check it out is a time series, say library. Let me take some other. So now if you go to the environment, there is a object called tcs.ns, and you can see it's called XTS object. And if you click on that, you can see that the row indexes are being marked as a date. Date is not separate column. The row index itself, indexing is being date, and it is sort of stored as a data frame, but it's not data frame. It's more. It's basically a different object called time series object, with extended time series object with all kind of features of the data frame. So all the data frames features you will have it here as well. So if I just say that, okay, so the TCS dot, so this is the data frame name. And if I just, as soon as I give the $sign, it gives me the opportunity to pick anything. So I pick this column TCS NS dot adjusted. If I just say plot, so this is how it is. Okay. So how we will say that, can we predict this kind of data set? Now, naturally, as we already have seen that, okay, why not we just go ahead and put the ACF plot. So let me just put the BACF. So just to make the data code little simpler. Okay, it has some missing values. All right, so I'll just, for the time being, I'll just remove those. I hope that will not create much of a problem. Yeah. So now you can see it's a very strong correlation that we are seeing. Even if I gave, say, ACF lag equal to, say, 200. You can see ACF is very strong. And then now look at the PACF. So what do you see?
Acha.
There is
There are no correlation actually.
There is no correlation at all. You can go up to 200. It's taking up to 35. Up to 200 even. That is, we don't see any correlation. There's a mild correlation here in this, but it's almost nothing. And this is what it tells us. Obviously, the correlation with itself will be near 1 or 1. But other than that, there is no correlation. So that means once you remove the trend part, it does not have any seasonality, and even the error does not have any information to predict. So basically it tells that, it means that we will not be able to predict the price of TCS from this data set. We have, remember that we have data from 2007, 15 years of data, but PACF plot indicating that we will not be able to predict the price of TCS from this plot, from the historical data. And why we cannot, it has a lot of financial interpretation. I'll tell you those. Meanwhile, I will like to move on to the modeling exercise.
So
Yeah.
I have a doubt over here. Like,
Sure.
so I've seen this before, and yeah, when the data set is very huge, we get this inference. We can't model it. But what if we take the last few data points and try to model over that?
Yeah, you can try that. But my experience is it will not. I mean, it's very counterintuitive when you see this plot. You feel like I can predict the price, right?
Yeah.
But it is actually very counterintuitive, because if you take the say difference of the basically log, it's log TCS, and then you take the difference and you plot this. So basically you are taking the first difference of the log of the value. It's pretty much stationary. The first difference is pretty much stationary. And then what you can do, you can just calculate the ACF plot of the, so this is, let me put it as a delta T, the difference of ln price. Let me just put it in. And ACF of the ln price, difference, first difference of the ln price. Oh, it has a NA value. So of course, for the first value will be NA. So let me just put a first value. Let us omit the first value. This is what you are seeing. There are certain, second day, third day, there are correlation, and there is a 30th day negative correlation. Second day, third day, fourth day, maybe like correlation is what? How much? Like it's like 0.4 or 5, maybe like 0.0405. Would you like to invest your money based on 0.04 correlation? I would not, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the whole story comes in. Okay, so you have to be very careful. And that's why many people say that you can't make money using technical analysis in stock market. So I don't want to drag this discussion to the stock market and finance. I would want to focus on the time series. And so I'll start with,
Excuse me, sir, I had a doubt.
yeah.
So you said we can't predict the prices, but the ACF has high values, right? So can't we just use the trend to predict?
You can put that is what typical the value investor does. The value investor means basically they look into the trend of the price, they look into the trend of the sales revenue, and the other expected other things, and then they expect that, okay, this trend will continue for maybe 2-3 years. Let me invest money and I will just enjoy the trend. Okay, so that means you have to invest the money and you have to wait for 2-3 years and enjoy the trend. Okay, so from the trend you can make money. Yes, that I agree. But you have to be patient. But if you think like, okay, I know exactly in 2-3 days it's going to go up with a high probability, I will invest it and then I will make money in a short term with the technical analysis. It's very, there is a chance that you will lose money. There is a very high chance. And at a daily trading, definitely daily trading. Now, intraday trading is a bit different issue. They are actually at a minute level data and millisecond level data. People have found correlation, autocorrelation in the error also. So that is, and there people do make but at a minute you cannot take a decision at a minute level. It's a very difficult. So what people do, people write algorithms and they put it into the production, and algorithms takes the decision of buying and selling. So it's called algorithmic trading, and there people do make money. Actually, it's not a lot. What I have heard from people who have invested in this game, that it is not like, you will be billionaire in overnight. No, it's not. But people do make money. There are people who make living out of it. But it's difficult. It's not everybody's cup of tea. And it is required a lot of investment. It needs, I think, at least 4 to 5 crore rupees of investment to just begin with. Okay. All right. Let me start with the air passenger data and the berth data. These two data sets we would like to model. So let us start the modeling. First, we will build a basic model with a regression, simple linear regression. Okay. And then we will build the ARIMA model, and then we will do a prediction, and then we will do a comparison. Okay, so here is our air passenger data set. Now, if we take log of that air passenger data set, we will see this exponential increase will become more like a, sort of a linear, and this, so that actually helps us a lot. Okay. Now, when we have already found that there is a 1-year correlation and in the air passenger data. So when I am giving this, how can we model seasonality in the simple linear regression, with simple linear regression? Any idea? Look,
I think we did it in previous classes, like we take a generalized model and then like plot, we optimize the variables and how to take it, like x square or x cube. We
Correct.
add terms and then
Correct. But when we are seeing seasonality, this kind of seasonality, I see Fourier functions. Okay.
yeah. Previously we have taken sine or something like that, sine cos.
Correct. So what I will do, I will just, so let us take pi, I think pi, yeah, 3.14. So 2 times pi divided by the frequency. Let us take frequency of 12, because 12 month is my okay. And then let me just, if we just set sine, let us take index of air passenger. If we just take index of air passenger, then okay. So these are the values that we are getting. Actually, we may have to take f equal to 1 or f to 12. I'll see what can we do. So let us take t is this, and if we just take omega times t and we plot, say, t versus sine of omega t. So it's a simple curve, right? Now, next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make plot sine of 2 omega t. So this is what happening, right? And then what I'm going to do, so this is my first F1, like feature 1, we can call it, let's, or yeah, maybe I just call it some x1, and then this is x2, and just engineering this feature from a machine learning perspective. I'm just coming out of thin air of this is x1, this is x2. And then we can try to plot x1 plus x2. So all kind of shapes can be modeled in this way. Then we can go for a maybe third wave. Right? How the third wave will behave. The third wave will behave. The frequency is now becoming much more faster. So this is how it is going to think. So if I just add this, so it will behave like this. Now, the problem I see, this is, I think frequency is not matching. So we have to, maybe I should take F1. I think F1 is the right one. Let me just see. No. What mistake I'm making? I think, should I take 12? Just I think this should be 1. Just a minute. P8.550.3 must be something missing. So okay. No, we are not looking. I think that is the right thing. So now I just took the first 12 months thing, and we can see that now it is behaving perfectly fine. P1 PE equal to 12 L. So this is the 1949 data, and then so instead of this is 2 and type equal to L. So you have to take frequency here as 1 because this is and this is X3, yeah. And then if we just plot these things, okay, I have to 1 to 12, and then X1, X2, X3, and then maybe I just say it is X hat, a new engineered feature. And then X hat, I'll just take 1 to 12, the first 1 year of data basically. I have to mainly model the first 1 year essentially. So this is how the first 1 year, and then
So
again.
what is the thing that we are trying to do exactly?
So we want to model this behavior. Just a minute. Yeah. So we want to, for a 1 year, it is like kind of going up and coming down, and then again going up and coming down. So we want to model this for 1 year. Because if we can model this for 1 year, then it's basically it is going to repeat. Okay. So this is, and we want to do it because it's going up and coming down. It's like a sine cosine behavior, like Fourier behavior. And that is what we are trying to model here. So one quick way of doing it, first thing we would like to do a time series model. So probably the easiest way of doing it, I think, passenger data, I will just model it as a data frame. Now, if I just go and check, so here is my time in one axis and value in the other axis. Okay, so I can just fit and we can just plot versus air passenger. So this is the data that we want to model, and then what we can do, we can just take the model the more time data equal to AP data. Okay. And the summary take this mod 1. So there is about 85% of the variability, but we have to do one more thing. We have to split the data into two. One is train and test. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to split the data into train. Greater than, maybe we can take up to 1957, less than equal to 1957. See, up to 1957, it has gone into train. They keep the rest of it as a test. 1957, then is test. Okay, so from 1957 February onwards, all data goes into the test. We can just do it in this way. All right, now we can just use the train data like this, and we fit the train, and it is now 81%. About adjusted as far as 81.5%. Of course, time will be very strong. And if we plot, say, the AP predict model 1, comma, new data equal to AP test. So if we do that, so it is predicting the thing. So what I will do, I'll just say AP hat. Now, if you go to the AP test, you have the AP hat. And then what we can do, we can just draw a line. So, from the AP test, just say time, comma, AP hat, and color equal to red. So this is the prediction line. Okay. So this is the prediction line that, so we are trying to get the things correct. So we can do one more thing. We can take the, since we know this, there is a log effect is there. So we can just take the log here. And in that case, we have to be a bit careful because the prediction will be on the exponential scale. So you can see that predictions are happening in the exponential scale. So we have to take the exponential of this. And now if we just plot this, so this is the model that is getting. So let us stay in this model. And now we have picked up the trend part. We have to now do the modeling of the taste, the seasonality. So what we can do is simply say, we just take the, define the omega before the right, 2 times pi, I think that should be fine enough. Now if we put sine omega times time, that should be the model. It says that trend is effective and sine omega time is also very statistically significant, not very strongly, but I mean, at least at a 5% level, it is significant. And we can just plot that with maybe purple. So if we just, it's trying to do something seasonality, but it's not doing so well. So let us add cos to that. Now cos function turns out to be very strong. Okay. And we can just say blue. This looks like doing reasonable. So sine plus cos together is doing reasonably okay. Remember that whatever we are doing in the forecast, in terms of forecast. Okay. So of course, the modeling is happening in this part of the data, and then we are doing the forecast on the out of the sample, and we are checking how it is doing in the out of the sample as we are building more and more feature. So then what we can do, we can maybe just put few more Fourier term. Let Let us, because there are too many curves are there actually. Let me just draw the curve once more clearly. So this looks like started picking up the behavior. Then if we do few more, you can see now in the model, the fitted model, which have used only data up to 1956, not beyond that, the cos 3 omega is not very effective, but up to 3 omega, it is sort of effective. And now if we just plot the forecast, it sort of started picking up the behavior for sure. Still, it is not able to do these lower part very well, but somewhat it is in the ballpark in terms of picking up the behavior. So that means Fourier transformation is somewhat Fourier engineer are doing pretty reasonably well. So we can put, why not we put few more Fourier terms? These engineered terms, of course, we are only using time and its structural behavior, but it's doing pretty good, right?
So there should be 5, right?
Hmm?
5.
Five. Yeah, last one should be 5. It's going up to 98%, but now there are things which are not significant. Okay, so what we can do, but let us see how it is doing. So it is now even started modeling the small curves, small ups and downs also. So we can, I think we can able to do that, but one more thing we have in our toolbox. Can you tell me how can we do that without adding further Fourier transformation? Have you tried stepwise variable selection? Is it being taught to you? Like forward selection, backward selection, all those things?
No, sir.
Okay. So, you can do lasso selection, the variable selection. One lasso, elastic net, these are all more recent terms, more recent development in last 20 years. I think most of this development has happened 15 to 20 years, I would say. Well, lasso is 1996, so 2006, 2016, 25 years. Elastic net is 2008, so about 15 years. Okay, so 15 to 25 years it has happened. Stepwise selection happened, forward selection, those things happened in 70s and 80s. So it's slightly older technique. So you can do the stepwise selection, because I'm doing, one of the problem with the stepwise selection is its model, its complexity is very high, time complexity is very high. It's in order of cubic. I think cubic or quadratic, I think quadratic. But still, I think we can do the stepwise selection, and all you have to do, sorry, you fit a full model maybe, and then you just pass the on this, or you can just put a, yeah, put it through a stepwise step function, which is available in stat package. These are all very old functions. So it will do a stepwise selection. And when you do that stepwise selection, it automatically throw away some of the coefficient which are not significant. It will not throw away all the things, like here it is not significant, but still model kept it in the model, but it throws away some of them. So we can actually add few more in the process. And fit this model, gigantic model, and let us see the summary. You will see a lot of things are not even effective. See 7, 8, 9, they are not even effective. Okay. And so what we will do, we'll go through the stepwise selection. And now this is the best model that we able to fit. Okay. So we will stop here, our building our model, and in the out of the sample, that's how the model is behaving. Okay, clear? So this will be our benchmark model. So this mod 1 is our benchmark model. And what I will do, we will just calculate the RMSE of out of the sample RMSE of the benchmark model. Okay. So from the AP test, I will just extract the AP hat minus the AP, the original value. So if I just extract that, these are the error that we are getting. You can see that as the things are going further, the error is actually increasing. And there is a sort of a positive bias is there. It is always overestimating the prediction. So there is a bias we are seeing. Do you see the bias? Error should be sometimes positive, sometimes negative, right? But it is always positive. The error is positive. Error is positive means it is overestimating. Constantly it is overestimating. Okay, so this we can definitely correct, but I'm not, I mean, you can always try to improve upon how to do the bias correction and all those things. I'm not going into that because that will just slow us down great significantly. Okay. So this is my RMSE. Root mean square error for the basic model built with a simple linear regression with a trend. Here is our trend. Here is a trend and some Fourier transformation for engineered variable, which will pick up the try to pick up the seasonality. Okay, clear? Anybody have any doubt? This is the full final model. So here is the intercept trend, a simple trend, which is just modeling this part. And then the sine cos functions are modeling the sine wave and cos wave. Okay. Next. Now we want to build our ARIMA model or ARMA model. So how we want to build our ARMA model? Can anybody tell me? Any idea?
Yes, sir. In case of
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
in case of ARIMA model, there are 3 variables P, D, and Q. So we have to like D will get from the difference, like which stationary it is, and P and Q we can get from that PACF.
Correct.
Or
So
we can train it from auto ARIMA.
Yeah, auto arima is the lazy thing. Let's start with the lazy thing, auto arima. Okay, and see what happens. So if you go to auto.arima, that is a lazy thing. You can immediately, it is actually written by very big, I think Rob Heineman's group. What was that? Is it in the time series package or forecast package? I think it's in the forecast package. Just yeah, it is in the forecast package. I think it was developed by the Rob Heineman's group. So, yeah, Rob Heineman himself developed that project. Yeah. So we can mod to second. This is the second model we are trying to build with auto arima. Okay. Second model. So what we can do here, we can just give maybe AP train $AP. Let's see what it does as a default. So it fits something. It fits ARIMA 3,1,2. Okay, fine. Let us just copy this part so that it will document wise, it will be helpful to us. So and then what we can do, it's saying that just forecast. Okay, all right. So in our we have to give age forecast, we have to give a age, like how many days of forecast ahead. So what we can do, so we have to give calculate. So AP test AP data test. Okay, AP data test. And what we can do, we can just say in row, we just calculate in row. So there are 48 values we need to forecast. So we will say H will be say H star is our number of forecasts that we have to do. AP forecast. You have to give this model name here and H equal to H star. And then that will be AP test. Now, here, AP test. Now AP hat, this came from our base model that we have used. So we have to create a maybe. So actually, you have to. It will be little difficult, I think. Let us see. It generally forecast gives lot of information, so that. Yeah. So done. You see. Yeah. It actually gives lot of things. It is point. It gives a point forecast. Then it gives a low of 80%, high of 80%, 90%, and 95%. So it gives a kind of a confidence band, and if it is there. So we have to extract the point forecast. So let a lot of things are there. So method model sigma 2 residual series character. Okay. Yeah, I think this is what we need to extract. 336, 97 to 144. I think this is 336, 340. This is what, yeah, 340, 341. This is what, this is the lower, this is upper, or this is fitted series, X series, fitted series, residual series. I think this is what we need to build down. Yeah, I think 97 to 144. This is the value we need to extract. Very good. So we have to extract this value, and in the what we will do, if we had second, this is our second model. Okay. And we will just plot this. So what we will do first, and then we will plot this second one. The third one we will so now we have the original data in the test data set. This is the time. This is the forecast from the first model. And this is the forecast from the second model, AutoArima model. Okay. So let us plot this. If we had two, we would like to give a different color. So maybe red. So let us, blue is the first model, and this is the second model. And this is what Rob Heineman's AutoArima is just doing really, really poor. Okay. I mean, do I even want to calculate the let me just do the forecast of the simple. I'm not sure if I have even actually taken the correctly. Let me just do the direct forecast of the. Yeah. So they are just predicting a complete flat surface with a very big range. So this is typically the forecast that AutoArima is giving you. So AutoArima at the face value we cannot use as a default setup. We remember that we fit the AutoArima at a default setup. So we have to give them some more. Okay. So second model is not working very well for us. So we need to explore the third model. Let us go for the third model. Sorry. So we can do little bit play around with the third model, AutoArima. So what are the options that we have? We have max.p, max.q, max.pq. Remember that it's only exploding up to fifth lag. At the default setup, it is only exploding up to fifth lag and second lag. Fifth lag for P and fifth lag for Q. And so maybe we just give in the third up to 12. Okay, max.p we allow it to explode up to 12. Okay, rest of the thing we will just keep it same. We'll just say. Let us see what happens. Well, and this will be our third model, model 3. Okay, and what model it still picking up this 312, right? Which was the previous model. So it's not working very well. So maybe what is the max dot D?
So maximum value of stationarity.
Okay.
Small
Let us
d.
value of PQ, capital P, capital Q. Okay, let us try. What is this max dot capital P and capital Q? You have to just little bit.
It is seasonal training.
Okay. So maybe
And,
we can give a capital P here, not the. Or let us keep the both max dot capital P equal to 12 and max dot capital Q equal to 12. Let us see what happens. Is it picking up? Yeah, it's picking up the same problem.
And actually, this problem happened with me last time. Like
Okay.
I did not know that, and actual ARIMA is giving AIC BIC value totally different than this auto ARIMA.
Okay.
So
Let's proceed.
I don't know, but in Python, auto ARIMA is working really very fine. But in R, I don't know.
In Python, it's really well.
Yes, really very well. It is optimizing great.
Okay. No, something definitely going not so well here. At least definitely auto ARIMA is not going well. We can try maybe just simple ARIMA. Because auto ARIMA is basically a wrapper around the ARIMA. So let us try to fix, because an auto ARIMA is clearly not working very well. So let us try ARIMA. Let me just give ARIMA as this one for the train part. And then in the order, what we can do, we can just give 12, 1, 12, and seasonality. Seasonality, we give maybe 12, 0, 12. Let me see. I'm giving 12 because just to capture the annual seasonality thing. Okay, it's giving some convergence issue, convergence problem in GAV code. Okay, it using Optim. All right. So maybe I'll just say max set equal to 1000. Maximum. So it's taking a bit time. Let us see. Is there a say maximum likelihood any condition? Okay, it's done. And without any, it has converged also, and without anything, it has fit the model. So let us check it out. If we can use focus comma 3 comma, and I think h equal to h star. Yeah, it has done something. Looks like. H2 down. It will be third. It has to be third model, and we will do to be third thing, and we should use a different color, so maybe purple. Okay, so this is my first model. This is the bad ARIMA model. This is nice. Looks like ARIMA is doing far superior than our base model that we developed. Correct? ARIMA 12,12. So because why 12? Because seasonality, the 12th lag that we have seen our PACF model. So let us calculate the RMSE. Very good. Okay. So we had to compute this RMSE. Let us take this computation here. And RMSE 3, I'm not even calculating RMSE of the second model. That was in any way, it was so bad. Just it doesn't make any sense to compare it. So I'll just take this. Now, first, let us see if actually, you see, ARIMA has some positive value, negative values, some positive values. So looks like it is not underestimating or overestimating. So on an average, errors, if the errors are close to 0, so which is a good news for us. Yeah, negative 14 is slightly underestimating, but I think that is okay. We can live with, and let us calculate the RMSE 3. So RMSE 3 is 854.227, which is, and what is the RMSE 1? Which is our baseline model. We created this
3,000 something.
Correct. So how much improvement we are getting? Almost. So RMSE 3 by RMSE 1, almost 25% more improvement that we are getting compared to the RMSE 1. So yeah, so this is, if this is our base model, with respect to base model, there is definitely no 75%, because okay, what is RMSE? RMSE means these are the variability the model cannot explain. Correct? So this is, so that means 75% better than our ARIMA model is 75% better than the model that we built with a straight line and the Fourier transformations. Okay. So definitely far better. And if we actually do the plot using the Feynman's plot, so you can see it's beautiful plot. It's giving us a beautiful plot, and it's doing really well. So so what does it mean? You cannot what is our learning today? Our learning is you cannot take a blind model and blindly just throw it into your optimization and you believe it will do wonder. So you have to do the hard work of basic data cleaning, data processing, learn the basic nuance and the features of your thing. That what we did when we did the PACF plot, we learned, okay, there is definitely 12-month things are going on, right? And then there must be some trend. The trend part is getting care of by this one. It is taking the first difference. So trend part is taken care of by the trend one. And then 12-month things is working pretty well. You can try the 2 also and other different models and all these things. But that is how we should develop the model. So you have to be careful where is the real signal is. The real signal is 12. So you cannot just try 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you hope that oh, it will just click what. So simple things will not work. And looks like auto ARIMA is not yet matured enough, but the ARIMA itself as a model is pretty matured. But you have to search through the hyperparameter space. So this DPQ or PDQ, these are like hyperparameters of the model. And you have to search through the hyperparameter space. And clearly ARIMA is doing pretty well compared to the benchmark model that we have compared, that we have used. Okay. So now I am going to give an assignment that can you try the same thing with the birth time series data? Because it has the similar kind of features in the birth time series data. I'll share this code with you. Okay. So if you look into the birth time series data, it also has the similar kind of features, but it is slightly more complicated than the air passenger because it has this sudden drop and then the trend starts and then the seasonality behaves, kind of comes into the picture. So you can take the first few years up to maybe 1956 data, and then these things you can keep it as a test and try it out how well your forecast is doing. So you have to be careful when you are choosing what ARIMA model you are trying, and you have to be painfully go through different choices of PDQ. But my experience is when you the choice of where the PACF plot has the highest bar, okay, that is the lag. If you use that lag as a P and Q for ARIMA, that works very well. Okay, that is our learning. And that is the key learning for us. So you do a PACF plot, look into where you have the highest peak you are getting. That is the signal point. That lag is your real signal. That lag you use as a P and Q for your ARMA or ARIMA model. All right. So I am going to share. Yeah.
Sir, in this birth data, should we omit first 5 years?
Yeah, you can try for for not first 5 years. You probably omit
3-4 years.
first year, first
Okay,
1946
yes.
to 47, then 47 onwards. My suggestion is keep it. I mean, what will happen? See, if you eliminate the first year, it will probably show very good fit. Okay, but if you keep it, my suggestion is it will show bad, but it's okay. It's just a learning experience. You don't have to. I'm not going to hack you down for this. Why do you fit so well? Your fit is not doing so well. It's okay. It's just a intellectual exercise, right? So try if the first difference not. My suggestion is keep this weird behavior, weird year, just to check that how resilient or robust is your ARIMA model or your forecasting model. So my suggestion is you keep this guy keep this 1 year and check it out. If doesn't work, try the difference equal to 2 or 3, and if that helps, you are well enough. All right.
Okay, sir.
Sure. All right. Thank you all. It's noon almost, and we are really hungry. Thank you very much for your time. And all right. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Sure.
sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Sure.